Oops. Hopefully you can hear me well. I don't usually record videos with my tablet very often, but UFC 200 is going to be Daniel Cormier and I believe Jon Jones. I have no idea. Actually, I don't even know why I'm reporting this because all I heard was the beginning of Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas does a stream on MMA fighting on SBN on YouTube, and I happened to see the video, and then I went to UFC's YouTube channel, obviously, and we see Jon Jones talking at a UFC 200 press conference, so more than likely, it's going to be Jones versus Cormier, which this will be their second fight? Yeah, their second fight. So it should be interesting. The only thing that's stupid is obviously the fact that now we're not going to see a Nate Diaz fight, which all of his fights are usually great, and Conor McGregor still won't be on the card. And honestly, I don't think UFC 200 is going to sell a lot. There's not going to be a big sell on that pay-per-view now. I mean, obviously, it'll be a little bit bigger than usual because it's UFC 200, but honest to God, I don't think I'm going to buy it. The only fight that I'm really going to maybe pay attention to is the Joe Lozon fight. Because, that's a great fight. It's a throwback fight, and that's the fights that we needed on UFC 200. I mean, the UFC 200 card isn't terrible, but it isn't, to the level that you'd think that if you were a multi-billion-dollar corporation and company, that you would put out a good-ass pay-per-view for you to be like, hey, man, thanks for being a fan for, 6 years, 7 years, how many ever years? Even if you're a one-year fan, it's still a big fucking deal, and people deserve big, gigantic fights, and obviously the Cormier and Jones is a big fight, for sure. If that's who it is. I didn't even take more than a half a second, but I saw Cormier there, and I was like, okay, well, obviously Cormier and Jones. Jones will fight another time in Las Vegas. Somebody pointed out in one of my videos that Jones hasn't ever really done great in Las Vegas, but his previous fight, cardio-wise, he looked great. He looked awesome. But as Jones said in the post-fight press conference after beating Ovens, he said that he wasn't loading up and he wasn't throwing over half of the shit that he saw and said, oh yeah, I should have thrown that or I should have thrown that. But he just didn't pull the trigger because he needed a safe fight, which honestly makes a lot of sense now because the UFC must have been like, hey, hopefully Jones doesn't get extra fucked up in this fight against Ovens. Hopefully he dominates. And I think that's kind of why they chose Ovens, to be quite honest with you, because there could have been, a bigger fight than Ovens and Jones. But that was an easy fight for him. He obviously won that. I'm not saying the UFC rigged anything, but I'm also saying that there could be a little hint of Dana White saying, hey man, don't get extra fucked up during this fight because we need you at UFC 200. So obviously that's what's happening. I'm not too against it. I mean, that fight, whatever. It's going to be an okay card. I mean, there's a couple of fights on that card that are decent, but then there's others that are stinkers, but this is a good fight. This is an okay substitute for McGregor Diaz 2, which honestly, I wasn't even a huge fan of that fight anyway. I was hoping for Edgar and McGregor at UFC 200, because obviously the featherweight division needs to be highlighted after the gigantic momentum that the featherweight division has had over the past maybe year and a half, 2 years, 3, maybe even 3 years. I'd go as far to say 3 years. The featherweight division got incredible after the Aldo and I think it was Mendez fight. There was a lot of traction in the featherweight division after that fight because the featherweight featherweight, welterweight, and I'd say maybe, well, no, I can't really say that. But yeah, the featherweight division is really great, and welterweight. Those are the two best divisions, in my opinion, in the sport right now. In UFC. But anyway, so yeah, Jones, Cormier, too. Not entirely impressed, but it also could have been way worse. It could have been so much worse, the choices that they had for fights, that it would have been a little bit ridiculous. But honestly, the UFC is losing out on millions of dollars since they didn't put McGregor back on the card, which, you can't get away with certain shit like that. So it's a double-edged sword. UFC is losing money, but they also did the right thing. And then it's difficult. But yeah, man, UFC 200 looks all right. I can't say that I'm going to buy it. If I were to buy the pay-per-view, it would be only because it's UFC 200. I would just buy it because of the name. Not because of the names on the card or whether the fights are going to be amazing. Because more than likely, they'll all be great fights. But, just nothing that jumps off the page. Maybe except for Velasquez and Brown, but even then, I'm not even interested in that fight, so I don't know. But anyway, Jones, DC 2 at UFC 200. Bananas. Insanity! Anyway, see you guys later.